If Iraq's new elected leaders want to bring peace and security to their country, it's people like these they will have to win over. This amateur video was shot on the first day of one of the biggest festivals in the Muslim year. But instead of buying new clothes for their children and visiting family and friends, the men of Fallujah are digging graves. Their town has been under devastating assault by US Marines and Iraqi government forces for a week. These images, just brought out of Iraq, are some of the only pictures taken from the townspeople's point of view. The only journalists there were embedded with the Americans. A local relief committee has just succeeded in collecting the first 22 bodies of people killed in the fighting and trucking them out for burial. The men erupt in anger and grief. Fallujah is the heartland of Iraq's minority Sunni Muslims, in power since the country was created in the 1920s, but now feeling victimized by the American occupation and marginalized by Iraq's new, supposedly democratic politics. The Americans and the interim Iraqi government led by Ayad Alawi attacked the town because they saw it as the headquarters of an insurgency that had come to control much of central Iraq. Nationalists battling to drive out the Americans, and foreign Islamists such as the Jordanian Abu Musab al-Zarqawi fighting to stop Iraq's majority Shiite Muslims from taking power. The men of Fallujah saw the attack as naked aggression on people who were simply defending their town against an illegal occupation.
يعني اللي يدافع على عرضه ويدافع على امه واخته وشرفه يسمونه ارهابي، بس هاي حرب صليبيه متفقه بها اسرائيل وامريكا على كسر الاسلام وكسر العراق عامه والفلوجه خاصه.
Very few of the bodies can be identified. They're bloated, blackened and rotting, and have been eaten by dogs. Most appear to be men, and one is wearing an ammunition belt. But others are women, and one is a child.
من ضمن الجثث اللي أتت لهذه المقبرة هي نساء اثنين وياهن طفل عمره 10 سنوات. هذا إرهابي هذا الطفل. هذه النساء إرهابيات قامت القوات الأمريكية بقتلهن بداخل البيت مالهن. الله يقبلها. أين الضمير الإنساني؟ أين حقوق الإنسان التي تدعي بها الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية؟
The grief is real and deep. This video, taken by the relief committee which collected the bodies, shows the human cost of trying to break the insurgency by military force. Salam Ismail saw that cost at first hand as a doctor in Fallujah during a first US assault in April last year. He went back to Iraq in January after raising money in Britain for aid projects. Salam went looking for friends at his old medical school in Baghdad and stayed with his family in Adhamiyah, a mainly Sunni Muslim area of the city. Everywhere he went, he found stories of sadness and suffering. This medical student was riding a minibus when shooting broke out and he saw a man injured. Salam says he rushed to help and was shot dead by American troops. Elsewhere in the big teaching hospital, Salam finds a friend who was locked up by the Americans for 7.5 months because a sniffer dog barked during a search of his car.
فتشوا السيارة كل شيء ما لقوا، جابوا كلب نباح. اجوا قالوا لي هاي ريحة متفجرات على الستيرن وعلى القر وعلى الدشبول. يابا هاي معطل الدشبول، قالوا لا ما. قالوا نفتش البيت، راحوا كل شيء فتشوا البيت كل شيء ما لقوا عندي. اجتني التهمة حيازة مواد متفجرة لصنع المتفجرات.
It's the first day of another big Muslim festival, the Feast of the Sacrifice, marking the end of the annual pilgrimage to Mecca. Salam's neighbours in Adhamiyah are going to pray. He records a video diary for a friend in Britain.
Well, I am now in the first day of the Eid, of the fasting day here in Iraq. Believe me, Michael, everything here is sad, everything is hopeless. Every one of the Iraqis is concerned about daily difficulties, high prices of food and goods, and at the same time there's no electricity, there's no fuel, and now in Iraq, in the country of the two rivers, there is no water. You can imagine, for the last 4 days there is no water.
For a Sunni family like Salam's, the occupation is to blame for everything. It's a daily humiliation that seeps into every aspect of life. On the first day of the festival, his 11-year-old sister sat glued to the television. But it wasn't a holiday film. The Arab satellite channel Al Jazeera was showing a documentary about American abuse of prisoners in Abu Ghraib jail. The family crammed themselves into the old car which Salam's father refuses to change and visit relatives for the festival. The holiday chit-chat is all about the occupation. This is Salam's cousin, Abu Muhammad.
يوم اللي قلت لكم على الانفجار اجرته وكانت قبل شو اسمه الانفجار اشتغلوا علينا كل قبل نرسل ورا السيارات.
Salam visits his aunt's family.
انتوا تخافون من الامريكان؟
ايه لا ولا ما خافوا من الامريكان نقتلهم احنا احنا
خالة انت حتنتخبين؟
لا احنا ما ننتخب.
ليش ما تنتخبين خالة؟
ما ننتخب احنا احتلال محتلين الامريكان ما نقدر ننتخب.
زين مو اياد علاوي وهاي
احنا ما عندنا كل حد من دولة.
One of Salam's projects is to deliver aid to refugees from Fallujah, paid for with donations from British Muslims. He checks on the state of the refugees with the relief coordinator of the Association of Muslim Scholars. This is a Sunni group which opposes the occupation and boycotted the elections, but has been negotiating a role for Sunnis in drafting Iraq's new constitution.
على عوائلنا النازحة لأنه هذه كارثة يعني إنسانية تسببوا بها الأمريكان.
Salam's convoy sets out for Fallujah. His Doctors for Iraq group is non-sectarian. This project is in a Sunni area, but others are in the Shiite south. More than 2 months after the assault on Fallujah, most of its residents, tens of thousands of men, women and children, are still refugees. Just to get in to check damage to your house means waiting for hours for an intensive search at the American checkpoints that seal the town. For Salam, an important part of his aid mission is to show Iraqis that people in Britain care about them, even if their government sent troops to join the American invasion.
أول ناس دفاعاً عنها من هم؟ بريطانيين عاديين ومسلمي بريطانيا.
Salam's group, Doctors for Iraq, delivers heaters, blankets and medical supplies to a mosque just outside Fallujah. Refugee families are squatting in a nearby school. Teachers are struggling to run classes for the refugees' children and their usual students. The refugees tell Salam horrific stories of civilian casualties in Fallujah. Huda Fawzi left it too late to get out of the town before the Marines attacked. She, 2 sisters, her father and a guest were asleep in their house when the Americans banged on the door.
فاحنا كعائلة ما يكون المفروض فيطلع يستقبلهم رأسا دفروا باب المدخل وضربوا عليه رصاص كلهم يعني ضربوا عليه يعني جماعي فشفت بابا من السقاط بس ما بعدهم برا بالطرمة أنا انهزميت.
Her father and their guest died immediately. Her sister bled to death 3 hours later. On the 12th of November, 4 days after the assault began, Ayad Naji Latif and 8 members of his family heard the Iraqi National Guard, the new Iraqi army, ordering people through loudspeakers to come out of their houses and leave the town. Out in the street, holding white flags, Ayad says the group came under fire from snipers in 3 directions.
مستهدفنا كليتنا يعني يعني انا 4 مرات ضربني يعني مو متتاليه يعني اوقات يعني اي حركه يضربني يعني. كذلك اخوي الشهيد يعني تحرك على الطفل بس يريد يشوفه فقنصه يعني باطلاقه وبعدين تحرك.
5 of the 9 of them were killed, including his mother, his father, one of his brothers, and a baby. The survivors lay bleeding in the street until nightfall, then crawled to the nearest house, where they survived on scraps of food for 8 days while the fighting raged. The lesson of Fallujah is that using the overwhelming might of the American military against the insurgency in Iraq stores up a terrible legacy of grief and anger. The interim Iraqi government appointed by the Americans believed in military force. But did force in Fallujah break the armed resistance? Did it win any hearts and minds in the Sunni areas of central Iraq? Sunnis like Salam are hoping their new elected rulers will now try negotiations before Iraq slips into a civil war that nobody wants.